Hi everybody. It's been a while since I've sent out a video to you, and this one's going to be a little bit me sharing some thoughts with you. I'm working on a new book, and it's on good and evil, right and wrong, which is maybe not a popular subject, but it is an intriguing one. And if I were to write a book today about health, and I look back at the books that I've written, A Creation of Health or Anatomy of the Spirit or whatever. Today, instead of listing the kinds of stresses that I typically associated with why people became ill, I would start out completely differently. My understanding of human nature, my understanding of us, and of how the invisible world works with us, and how this extraordinary universe is organized, as little as my understanding is of this. But it has progressed from those days of thinking that, negativity caused illness and whatever. Today, if I were teaching you a class on health, on your well-being, on how you should understand yourself and the nature of your power, I would start by explaining the nature of light and shadow, the nature of good and evil, as the two fundamental ingredients that are always these active agents inside of us. And they are. And if they're inside of us, they're outside of us. They're inside, they're outside. They're like the two fundamental ingredients. You could say the universal ingredients of energy that we are always using. Always. It runs through us, it runs with us. And then we have to look at, what are we here to do? What's the purpose of life? Surely it can't be to get the world's largest shopping cart and put a yacht in there and 16 homes and all the other stuff you can buy, and then what? And then what? More stuff? More stuff? Surely that is not the purpose of life, is to become a stuffologist. No, it's not. If you have done any work at all, any reading, anything about purpose, about the great spiritual teachings in all traditions, they all point toward the need for human beings to pursue truth. Buddha would say to get through your illusions, because it is your illusions that cause you to suffer. There'll always be pain, but suffering's the optional part. Suffering's the optional part. Illusions. What does Buddha meant by that? It's so delicious. Buddha was talking about the idea that we assign value to things that have no value. No whatsoever. Here's a pen. This has absolutely no value other than being a pen, but it has no power. It has no power. Like I can't hold it and suddenly start channeling the secrets of the universe. It's just a pen. But if I suddenly decided that, maybe it's a special pen, it's my lucky pen, it's this or that, I start assigning values that there's no truth to it. It's an illusion, but I create that for myself. We all do this. And one of the themes of all spiritual traditions that I have since seen play out 1 billion trillion times is that we are urged and encouraged, no matter in what voice, whether that voice is Buddhism or Christian mysticism or Judaism or the Kabbalah or Hinduism, whatever tradition, Sufism, to pursue truth. to pursue truth. Truth is our great power. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Truth. To pursue the pursuit of truth. Now here's where I wish I had all kinds of special effects, so I could now suddenly illustrate your energy system. The brilliance of the energetic hologram you're sitting in as you listen to me talk to you. And that you could actually see how your energy responds to you every time you make a choice, every time you make a decision, every time you have a thought, every time a thought comes into you, every time you interact with a human being, every time you have a response. You are constantly, it's a law of energy, you're constantly in motion. You are constantly in motion. You're constantly enveloped in this personal little ocean of energy that, if you could see clearly, you'd realize was actually conscious grace. It's actually it's the substance of God. And what truth is all about is that every choice we make directs our resource, this resource of our soul, our spirit, into actions of creation, into acts of creation. That's what we do. We do it all the time. We are constantly responding, choosing, sending our energy off into acts of creation. And if you don't believe me, just sit around and watch yourself. Observe yourself. Observe. Observe the consequences of your choices, even a thought form, even the choice. As I say to my students, I want to shrink you down to a microcosm so that you even get the power you have in this, the decision of one word, the way you think, the way you talk to yourself, the decision to say, well, what word should I use here? Maybe I'll use the word, this was luck. People will say, oh, I've just been so lucky. And I find that word irritates the hell out of me. And I'll say, you're not lucky, you're blessed, and there's a difference. And by taking luck out and putting blessed in, you open up a celestial understanding that the events of your life just don't happen. They just don't happen. There's a whole choreography that's going on. You want to use luck? Then you think it's just a throw of the dice. So you're in a totally different realm of consciousness by virtue of one word: luck or blessing. Luck or blessing. In the book on health today, I absolutely would begin with the core of health is your relationship to truth. Absolutely, without a doubt. It is your capacity to be truthful with yourself, to have faith in yourself, and to be able to trust yourself. Because from that comes your relationship to your inner sense of self, or what's been labeled self-esteem. But I'm talking about the capacity to actually esteem yourself, to actually have reverence for the power that is your life. And that you realize this is a power that you have to manage with great discernment, with great discernment. That every choice you make, every influence you allow into you is going to have a profound consequence. It's going to have a consequence on what you think, how you see the world, what words you let come into you. I think this time we are living in is all about our ascending to a level of consciousness where we get this, where we actually get that we are these co-creative agents that are here to experience life for a very brief time, and that we're held accountable for whatever it is we've done here. And it's as simple as that. I'm not going to dress it up with a religion. I think this is just the way it is. Because the nature of God is nature itself. And all nature moves in this season, in these cycles, in this subject to the laws of order. And that is the nature of God. And so it is, I think, a time in which we are making our way through systems of thought that are no longer as relevant to us, and that would be a lot of the teachings of traditional religions, for example. We have to figure out what's relevant. And as we're in this in-between stage where we're detaching from conventional values and traditions and vocabulary, holy vocabulary, such as the word God or the word sin or the word grace, we don't know exactly what to attach ourselves to that holds a vocabulary that has a higher sense of power, like the difference between luck and grace and blessing. There's an entirely different realm of power that you're dealing with. In the same way, when I say to people, it's not, when they talk about, well, this has energy, that word is for pedestrians. When you actually get to a place where you can, for a brief second, realize that energy is conscious. It's not just energy, it's grace. It is a conscious force. It is a holy divine force. That changes the way you have to look at the entire structure of life and everyone in it and your connection to everyone in it. Now, I think we're making our transition to that. None of us will live long enough to see this come to fruition, however it does, whenever it does, if it does. If it does. I do know this is the transition we are undergoing, where we are gaining more and more inner real estate that about the nature of our own consciousness and the power that that has. And in doing that, we have to understand how this power works. And that this power is divine organics. It is the nature of divine organics. It works organically. There is shadow and there is light. There is good and there is evil. And we are participants in these constant acts of creation that create the smaller things we actually realize in our life, like my decision to get an iced tea before I came up here, to the larger decisions of how my decision to pray every day might impact the whole. I don't know if it does. I believe it does, so I do. So I do. Now, I'm going to take this a step further and say, because, excuse me, it is so dry, so because I so believe what I'm teaching you, and that we are becoming an inner-driven species, a consciously driven species, which will shift our field of gravity from outside to inside. So instead of always looking at everything as happening to us, we have to start including in our understanding of ourselves how it is we participate in acts of creation. And this will diminish the idea that we're victims. We're not victims, we're co-creators. We're not victims. But I think even in order to get to that point, we've had decades of animating victim consciousness, so we become aware that so many human beings feel victimized. That is the result of feeling powerless without an understanding of this inner power. And that's where we're beginning. That's like step one for human consciousness, this idea that we have felt powerless. And as a result of feeling powerless, it makes human beings vulnerable to what Buddha would call incredible illusions, right? Maybe not incredible, it's not a Buddha word, but illusions. Illusions like, in order to be safe, we have to, other people are bad. Other people are enemies. In order for us to be safe, we have to dominate. We have to be in charge. We have to be better than others. Another illusion. We are entitled to be better than others. Entitlement. That we are entitled to a certain way of life that never changes. So I'm going to hit a pause button and say we are in an active, epic era of rapid change where the world, even as I knew it as a child, is gone. It's gone. And with every passing day, the world adapts to different things that never existed before. And this has a tendency to make us feel very vulnerable and very frightened. And it's very hard to even imagine, am I participating in this? Because I don't like any of it. I don't like any of it. But evolution is not that simple. It's a mystical, organic force that is moving us forward under a template of becoming whole. And we can take holism when we apply it to our health because it's tiny and bite-sized. Oh yeah, mind, body, spirit, that makes sense. And nothing else in our life seems to be disrupted except the way we eat and maybe the way we exercise. But it's disruption that's controllable. It's unimaginable to think, well, let me think. What's one is in the whole. What's in the whole is in one. So if I'm getting the message that everything is interconnected, maybe, just maybe, that same message in some organic way is filtering into every system of life, aquatic, air, countries, politics, policies, every system. And as you know, and as you've noticed in yourself, when a higher truth, when more light comes in that says, look, this is the way it is. You have more power over your health. This is the way you are. You are interconnected. You are a whole organic system. The incredible power of knowing that is transformational. That degree of light. But that degree of light attracts that degree of shadow. It always does. It's like the moment you say, oh, I beat my addiction to whatever, to, in my case, honey and chocolate. I beat my addiction. It's the moment I crave it. It's the moment I crave it, right? And you know how it is. All of us know how it is. So as this light is waking up in people, so is the opposition. As this light that says, go for truth. In order for you to be effective in a mind, body, spirit dynamic, to utilize that template, you have to be, as I've learned through decades of working with people, you have to be very truthful with yourself. You have to explore your psychological nature, your emotional nature, your spiritual intelligence. You have to go in and go deep. And you have to excavate everything that was not in harmony. That's what health is. It's becoming whole. Becoming whole means going after your fragments. So imagine that the world's going after its fragments now. Because in a very real way, that's exactly what's happening. And in those fragments are, just as I noticed when I was actively doing medical intuitive readings and dealing with people in healing, and I would say, you know, if this would help you, do this, 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 this. I'm telling you right now, the majority of people recoil and say, I have to do all that. I have to give up my comfort. I have to give up my normal eating routine. I have to start exercising. I have to, hello. And every single thing that brings someone toward holism had to confront an inner saboteur. I don't know. I mean, that's pretty hard. I have to, and then I would say, and you have to be more honest. You are not an honest person. You have to form a relationship to truth. You have to stop betraying yourself. You have to stop saying one thing and doing another. You're incongruent. So you can eat all the fresh vegetables you want, but that's nothing compared to the power of deciding to tell the truth. Now we're into the range of real power. Now we're into power. Because in understanding the power of truth, you realize that means I have to interact with every person in a different way, but mostly you start interacting with yourself differently. Mostly you start resonating deeply with your own feelings in such a way that you are no longer in anxiety or conflict. You take those on. You don't blame others for why you are the way you are. You dive deep and say, I blame them, but I'm also angry. And I'm angry because I want to be vengeful, and I have to deal with that. So where I'm going with all of this, because what I'm sitting here on is a 6-week class with you on all of this. But I'm watching what's happening in the country, as all of you are. What's happening here in the United States, what's happening in France, what's happening in the world. But right now my focus is here in the United States. And I have learned through my work that we are not designed to deal well with lies. We're not. We are fundamentally designed to reside in truth, to seek truth, to tell the truth, to know the truth. Which is why in all relationships, when someone finally finds someone, it's because what? They can talk to them. They can be truthful. They can, without truth, you can't have a good relationship. You can't have anything, not even with yourself, especially with yourself. You certainly will never have any faith in yourself. Someone will say to you, well, can I confide in you? And you'll say, absolutely, knowing full well you just lied. Because you're going to tell somebody. And you're going to tell them not to say anything. But you couldn't even keep your word there. You couldn't even do it there. And in order to deal with all these infractions against truth, we blame others. That's my mother's fault, my father's fault, my childhood, this, that. We pull out the victim. We pull out the victim. Because once again, we've betrayed our capacity to have an integrous relationship with ourselves. And because we just don't admit that, we have to externalize it, and we blame other people. We blame our childhood. We hold on to our wounds. I wrote the book on woundology. I know what I'm talking about. We hold on to wounds because that makes these infractions against truth easier to live with. And this is the nature of shadow and light. This is the nature of good and evil. And it's very easy to slip into bargains with darkness because, well, we feel we're entitled. We're entitled. You know, why are those people getting the jobs? All those people, all the things people tell themselves to not live by higher truths. Higher truths such as, we are all sharing this planet. We are all part of one soul. What we do to one, we do to everybody. And I'm going to be doing a class with Nancy Rhines on near-death experiences, but not on that, but the incredible guidance that is pouring in from the other side. And again and again and again, when people have life reviews, they actually see every single thought they had and its impact, every choice they made and its impact on the person, and they feel the impact of it. And it's one thing if I heard this from one person, but you know what? For 40 years I've been around near-death experiences in multiple countries and in multiple languages. It's all the same thing. So all of these people can't be drinking some bad Kool-Aid. They've all had this, what I consider contemporary mystical experience, which is this is the way it is. Now go back and tell people. Go back and tell people. And so I think that, and it is compelling me all the more to get this book on good and evil done, because I don't think we realize how easily we fall into patterns with darkness. I don't think we realize that. I don't think you realize that by lying once, you'll lie twice. And that what you're actually doing is you are losing faith in yourself. And if you don't have faith in yourself, how in the world can you ever have faith in God? In something you can't see. If if you can't keep your faith in what you say to someone sitting across from you, how in the world can you possibly have faith in something you can't see and barely believe in? And then how can you trust anything? How can you trust your instincts? How can you trust an inner voice that says you're going to be fine? Everything comes down to your relationship to truth. And so, as I close this, I want to emphasize that there is the grace of discernment. And it is a very powerful grace. And as I look at what's happening in our country, I see it as this incredible dark movement to disempower this population, to take away its voting rights, to take away its biological rights, to take away its thinking rights, to poison it to think other people are horrible. And it's like, I remember thinking, how did those people manage to get Stalin or Hitler? Because these evil people rise out of the collective. They just don't fall from trees. But if enough people are poisoned sufficiently, if enough people can no longer discern truth, if enough people forget or are detached from values, and they fall into the dark side of entitlement and anger, that's exactly what monsters like Stalin and Hitler and Trump breed off of, are these kinds of things. The fear of people. If they were good, they wouldn't have to rely on fear. They wouldn't have to rely on lies. They wouldn't have to rely on everything the soul is violated by. So I ask you to just spend a moment invoking the grace of discernment, asking for discernment, asking to see clearly, and to not be contaminated by the need for newspapers to sell articles, because the more outrageous, the better it sells. The more the rumors, this, that, and the other, that you, what is this nation about? It's about freedom. It's about freedom for everybody. It's about respect for everybody. It's not about a madman who says, I am your retribution, who speaks like an 8-year-old bully, and who's a criminal. He's a criminal. And the other candidate, I wish he had 20 years younger. He was 20 years younger, but he's not. But I cannot even consider having that criminal walk into the White House again. It's just, and a Supreme Court that says now he can be a king. No. So it is up to us to get back to truth, to get back to our core values, to get back to, oh my God, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? And some choices may never be perfect, but some are always evil. Okay, thank you, everybody.